The crimson sun painted the horizon as Zara Zwick ran through the dusty streets of Silver Creek, her tattered dress fluttering behind her like a flag of surrender. But surrendering was the last thing on her mind. The town's falsely pious citizens watched from their windows, whispering condemnations while keeping their distance from the woman labeled a thief. "Stop her!" Sheriff Brock Masterson's booming voice echoed through the main street as his heavy boots pounded the wooden boardwalk. His deputy flanked his other side, both men determined to make an example of the young woman who had dared to steal a loaf of bread from the general store. Zara's lungs burned as she pushed herself harder. At 22, she'd already endured more hardship than most faced in a lifetime. Orphaned at 16, she'd made her way west on promises of opportunity, only to find prejudice and closed doors at every turn. Her dark eyes scanned frantically for an escape route as she rounded the corner by the livery stable. The year was 1878, and Silver Creek, Colorado was like many frontier towns, quick to judge, slow to forgive, and merciless to those without protection. Especially women trying to survive alone. Zara collided with something solid, not a wall, but a man. Strong hands steadied her, preventing her fall. She looked up into eyes the color of a summer storm, set in a sun-weathered face beneath a worn Stetson. "Whoa there," the stranger said, his voice low and steady. "Seems you're in quite a hurry." "Please," Zara gasped, hearing the sheriff's approaching footsteps. "They'll lock me up." "I only took bread because I haven't eaten in 3 days." The tall cowboy assessed her with a quick glance, noting the hollowness in her cheeks, the desperation in her eyes, and the tremble in her hands. In that moment, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. As Sheriff Masterson rounded the corner with his deputy, they found not a cornered woman but a tall cowboy standing protectively in front of her. "Step aside, stranger," Masterson ordered. "That woman's a thief." The cowboy didn't move. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a few coins. "How much for the bread she took?" "This isn't about the money," the sheriff sneered. "It's about the law." "Is it?" The cowboy's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Or is it about making sure folks know their place?" He shifted his stance slightly, revealing the well-worn Colt at his hip. "I don't know who you are, mister, but you're interfering with the law in my town." "Name's Vaughn Calloway," the cowboy said, touching the brim of his hat, "and I'm not looking for trouble. Just offering to pay for what she took." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "That's not how things work here. She needs to learn her lesson." "What lesson would that be?" Vaughn asked. "That hunger's a crime. That desperation deserves punishment. Seems to me there might be better lessons to teach." The standoff drew attention. Shopkeepers and patrons emerged from nearby establishments, watching the drama unfold. Zara stood behind Vaughn, scarcely breathing, unable to believe someone was standing up for her after months of facing the world alone. "Last chance to move aside, cowboy," the sheriff warned, his hand hovering near his gun. Vaughn didn't flinch. "I reckon I'm comfortable right where I am." The tension stretched between them like a bowstring pulled tight. The deputy shifted nervously, but Vaughn remained immovable, his eyes locked with Masterson's. Finally, the sheriff spat into the dust. "Fine. $2 for the bread and another $5 for disturbing the peace." Vaughn counted out the coins without complaint and held them out. "That should settle it." Masterson snatched the money. "It does for now, but I want both of you out of my sight. And you," he jabbed a finger toward Zara, "I catch you stealing again, no cowboy's going to save you." As the law officers retreated, Zara released the breath she'd been holding. "Thank you," she whispered. "But why would you do that for a stranger?" Vaughn turned to face her, his expression softening. "Everyone needs someone to stand up for them sometimes. Looks like today was your turn." He studied her face. When's the last time you had a proper meal?" "I can't remember," Zara admitted. "Well then, Miss Zwick, Zara Zwick, Miss Zwick, I'm headed to the diner. Would you care to join me? No strings attached, just food." Zara hesitated, years of hard lessons making her wary of kindness that often came with hidden costs. But something about Vaughn Calloway's straightforward gaze convinced her he was different. "I'd be grateful," she finally said. They walked to Sarah's Diner, the only decent eating establishment in Silver Creek. Heads turned as they entered the mysterious Cowboy and the town pariah. The whispers followed them to their table. "Don't mind them," Vaughn said, pulling out a chair for her. "Small towns run on gossip like engines run on coal." The waitress approached cautiously, giving Zara a disapproving look before turning a warm smile on Vaughn. "What can I get you, sir?" "Two specials," Vaughn replied, "and coffee for both of us." When the waitress left, Zara leaned forward. "You're new in town. You don't know what they say about me." "I don't much care what they say about anyone," Vaughn replied. "I tend to make up my own mind about people." "And what does your mind say about me?" Zara asked, her chin lifting slightly. "That you're hungry, down on your luck, and probably too proud to ask for help until things got desperate." His gray eyes seemed to see right through her defenses. "How am I doing so far?" A small smile touched Zara's lips for the first time in months. "You missed stubborn. Everyone says I'm too stubborn for my own good." "Stubborn's just another word for determined when it comes from the right mouth," Vaughn said, returning her smile. Their food arrived, hearty plates of beef stew with potatoes and fresh bread. Zara tried to eat slowly, maintaining her dignity, but hunger won out. Vaughn pretended not to notice how quickly she cleared her plate, instead telling her about the cattle drive that had brought him to Silver Creek. "I've been working for the Carlton outfit for 3 years," he explained. "We delivered a herd to the railway station yesterday. The boys are celebrating at the saloon, but that's never been my way of unwinding." "What is your way?" Zara asked, curious about this man who'd stepped between her and disaster. "Open sky, quiet campfire, maybe a good book," he shrugged. "Simple things." "You raid?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, and she immediately regretted the surprise in her voice. Vaughn chuckled. "Don't let the dust and the spurs fool you, Miss Zwick. My mother was a schoolteacher before she married my father. Our ranch house had more books than cattle when I was growing up." Your parents are?" "Gone now," Vaughn confirmed. 5 years passed. Fever took them both within a week of each other. "I'm sorry," Zara said softly. "My parents are gone too. Father first in the war. Mother followed 3 years ago." A moment of understanding passed between them, the recognition of shared loss that needed no elaborate expressions of sympathy. "So what brings you to Silver Creek?" Vaughn asked. "It's not exactly a place most people choose to settle." Zara's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. "I was headed to Denver. My mother's cousin lives there or lived there. I'm not certain anymore. I ran out of money here, took work at the laundry, but—" She hesitated. "But," Vaughn prompted gently. "Mr. Pearson, the owner, had expectations that went beyond washing linens." Zara's voice hardened. "When I refused his advances, he claimed I'd stolen from the till. No one believed me over him." Vaughn's jaw tightened. "And since then, I've tried to find work. No one will hire me. I've been doing odd jobs, mending, cleaning when someone will let me. It's not enough." She looked down at her empty plate. "I'm not a thief, Mr. Calloway, not until today." "Vaughn," he corrected. "And I believe you." Those 3 simple words nearly broke her. How long had it been since anyone had taken her at her word? "What will you do now?" he asked. "Keep trying to earn enough for a stage ticket to Denver. Start over somewhere people don't cross the street to avoid me." Vaughn considered this, then reached a decision. "The cattle drive's finished. but I've taken a job helping William Thompson drive his horses to his new ranch near Boulder. It's 3 weeks' work, and he's looking for someone to cook for the hands during the journey." Zara's eyes widened. "Are you offering me a job? If you can cook, yes. If not, I'm sure Thompson can find something else for you to do. He's a fair man." "I can cook," Zara said quickly. "My mother made sure of that. It won't be fancy, just beans, biscuits, coffee, and whatever game we might shoot along the way. But it pays, and it gets you closer to Denver." Hope, so long absent, flickered in Zara's heart. "When do you leave?" "2 days from now. That gives you time to gather whatever you need." Zara laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. "Everything I own is in a single carpet bag at Mrs. Holloway's boarding house, if she hasn't thrown it out by now. I'm 3 weeks behind on rent." Vaughn nodded. "I'll settle your account with Mrs. Holloway and meet you there tomorrow morning. We'll talk to Thompson together." "Why are you doing all this for me?" Zara asked, unable to comprehend such generosity. Vaughn was quiet for a moment. "I told you everyone needs someone to stand up for them sometimes. When my parents died and the bank tried to take our ranch, a stranger helped me fight to keep it. Said it was payment for something someone else had done for him years before." He met her eyes. "Maybe someday you'll do the same for someone else." As they left the diner, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street. Zara felt lighter than she had in months, despite the stares that followed them. "Thank you for the meal," she said when they reached the corner, "and for everything else." "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock at the boarding house," Vaughn reminded her. "I'll be ready." As she watched him walk away, Zara hugged herself against the evening chill. For the first time in a very long time, tomorrow held something other than dread. The next morning, Zara woke before dawn. She washed with the precious bit of water she'd saved, mended a tear in her second dress, and packed her few belongings. Her stomach knotted with anxiety. What if Vaughn didn't come? What if this Thompson refused to hire her? Mrs. Holloway intercepted her as she descended the stairs. The landlady's thin face was pinched with disapproval. "So you found yourself a protector, did you?" she sniffed. "Shameful, but I suppose it's better than stealing." Zara's cheeks burned. "It's not like that. Mr. Calloway offered me honest work." Mrs. Holloway raised an eyebrow. "That's what they all say, dear. Your cowboy came by last night, paid what you owe plus a week more, said you'd be leaving today." Relief washed over Zara. He had kept his word about the rent. "Yes, I am." "Well, don't expect to come crawling back when he tires of you. I run a respectable house." Zara bit back a retort. There was no point arguing with someone who had already judged her. Instead, she thanked the woman stiffly and took a seat in the small parlor to wait. At precisely 9 o'clock, Vaughn arrived. He looked different in the daylight, still tall and imposing, but there was a gentleness in the way he removed his hat as he entered the boarding house. "Morning, Miss Zwick," he greeted her. "Ready to meet your potential employer," Zara nodded, gathering her carpetbag. "Allow me," Vaughn said, taking the worn bag from her hands. Their fingers brushed briefly, sending an unexpected warmth up her arm. They walked to the livery stable where William Thompson was inspecting a string of horses. He was an older man with a silver-streaked beard and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Thompson, this is Miss Zara Zwick," Vaughn introduced them. "The cook I mentioned." Thompson studied her with frank curiosity. "You ever cooked for a trail crew, Miss Zwick?" "No, sir," Zara answered honestly. "But I've cooked for farmhands and loggers. Men who work hard get hungry the same way everywhere." Thompson chuckled. "That they do. Can you handle yourself around a campfire? It won't be a fancy kitchen." "I can manage," Zara assured him. "She's had a run of bad luck here," Vaughn added quietly, "but she's willing to work hard." Thompson nodded slowly. Calloway vouches for you, and that counts for something. Job pays $30 for the 3 weeks, plus room and board once we reach the ranch if you want to stay on. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, I accept. Good. We leave at first light day after tomorrow. Calloway will show you where to meet us. Thompson turned back to his horses, the matter settled. As they walked away, Zara whispered to Vaughn, "You didn't tell me about the possibility of staying on at the ranch." "Wasn't sure he'd offer it," Vaughn replied. "Thompson's a good judge of character. He saw something in you worth keeping around." "Or he trusts your judgment," Zara suggested. A hint of a smile played at Vaughn's lips. "That too. Now you'll need proper trail gear. That dress won't last a day on horseback." He led her to the general store, where the owner eyed Zara suspiciously until Vaughn placed a significant amount of money on the counter. "Miss Zwick needs riding clothes," he stated firmly. "Practical ones." The storekeeper's attitude improved immediately at the sight of cash. Soon, Zara found herself outfitted with sturdy trousers, flannel shirts, a wool coat, and proper boots. "I can't accept all this," she protested when they left. "It's too much." "Consider it an advance on your wages," Vaughn said. "Thompson won't mind. You can't cook if you freeze to death." Their next stop was the apothecary for basic medicinal supplies, then the feed store for provisions that would supplement what Thompson had already purchased. By midday, Zara felt overwhelmed by the sudden change in her fortunes. As they sat on a bench outside the general store, she finally voiced her concerns. "People will talk, about us. They already are." Vaughn handed her a stick of peppermint candy he'd purchased. "People always talk. Doesn't make what they say true." "But your reputation is mine to worry about," he interrupted gently. "And I've never put much stock in what others think of me." Zara studied the candy in her hand. Such a simple treat, but it had been years since she'd had one. "I'm not used to kindness without conditions." Vaughn's expression grew serious. "There are still good people in this world, Zara. Sometimes they're just hard to find among all the others." She looked up at him, struck by the use of her first name. It sounded different when he said it, like it belonged to someone worthy of respect. "Where will you stay tonight?" he asked, changing the subject. "Mrs. Holloway's, I suppose. You paid for another week." Vaughn nodded. "I'll come for you before dawn day after tomorrow. Try to get some rest tomorrow. The first few days on the trail are the hardest." That evening, alone in her tiny room, Zara allowed herself to feel the hope that had been building all day. The chance to leave Silver Creek behind, to start fresh, it seemed almost too good to be true. Yet the new clothes hanging on her door hook and the supplies stacked neatly in the corner were tangible proof that her life had changed in the span of 24 hours. All because one man had stood his ground against a sheriff and refused to step aside. The day before departure passed quickly as Zara prepared for the journey. She washed her hair and let it dry in the sun, knowing it might be weeks before she had such a luxury again. She studied the supplies Vaughn had helped her purchase, familiarizing herself with everything. Mrs. Holloway continued to shoot disapproving glances her way, but Zara no longer cared. By this time tomorrow, she would be miles from Silver Creek and the whispers that had followed her for months. When she finally climbed into bed, sleep eluded her. Excitement and anxiety battled in her mind. What if she couldn't manage the cooking? What if the men didn't respect her? What if this was all some elaborate joke at her expense? Yet when she thought of Vaughn Calloway's steady gaze, those fears receded. Whatever his reasons, he had helped her without asking anything in return. In a world that had shown her little kindness, that alone was worth holding on to, long before dawn, Zara was dressed in her new clothes, her hair braided tightly down her back. The trousers felt strange against her legs, but she had to admit they were far more practical than skirts for riding. A soft knock at her door announced Vaughn's arrival. When she opened it, his eyebrows rose slightly at the sight of her in men's clothing. "You look prepared," he said approvingly. "Got everything?" Zara nodded, lifting her carpet bag. Her entire life still fit into one small bag, but somehow that fact didn't depress her as it once had. It felt like freedom. They made their way through the sleeping town to the outskirts where Thompson and 3 other men waited with the horses. 20 magnificent animals stood tethered to a long rope, their breath creating clouds in the pre-dawn chill. "Morning, Miss Zwick," Thompson greeted her. "This here's Mac, Elijah, and Pete. They'll be helping with the drive." The men tipped their hats respectfully, though Zara caught the questioning looks they exchanged. A woman on a horse drive wasn't common. "Mrs. Zwick's our cook," Thompson explained. "And I expect you boys to treat her with the same respect you'd show your own mothers. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they answered in unison. Vaughn led a gentle-looking mare forward. "This is Daisy. Thompson says she's steady and calm, good for a beginner." Zara approached the horse cautiously. She'd ridden before, but not often, and never for days at a stretch. "She won't bite," Vaughn assured her, giving the horse an affectionate pat. "It's not her bite I'm worried about," Zara murmured. "It's her tendency to separate my backside from the saddle." Vaughn laughed, the sound rich and warm in the cold morning air. "I promise to pick you up if you fall. Now, put your foot in the stirrup here, and I'll give you a boost." His hands were strong and sure as he helped her mount, lingering at her waist just long enough to make sure she was seated securely. Zara adjusted her position, finding her balance as Daisy shifted beneath her. "Hold the reins like this," Vaughn demonstrated. "Not too tight, but firm enough to let her know you're in charge." As the sky lightened to a pale lavender, Thompson gave the signal to move out. The horses were organized in a specific order, with Thompson and Pete in the lead, Elijah and Mac on the flanks, and Vaughn bringing up the rear with Zara. "Keep Daisy right beside mine," Vaughn instructed. "These horses have made drives before. They know to follow each other. Your job is just to stay on and enjoy the view." The first hour was magical. As the sun rose fully, it painted the landscape in gold and amber. The town of Silver Creek fell away behind them, and with it, all the pain and struggle of Zara's time there. Ahead lay open country rolling hills dotted with pine and aspen, a wide blue sky stretching to the horizon. By mid-morning, however, the romance had worn off. Muscles Zara didn't know she possessed screamed in protest at the continuous motion. Her hands were sore from gripping the reins, and her lower back ached fiercely. Vaughn noticed her discomfort. "First day's always the worst," he said encouragingly. "By the end of the week, you'll feel born to the saddle." "If I live that long," Zara muttered, shifting to find a less painful position. They stopped at noon to rest the horses and have a quick meal of jerky and hardtack. Zara nearly collapsed when Vaughn helped her dismount, her legs wobbling like a newborn colt's. "Walk it off," he advised. "It helps with the stiffness." She hobbled in small circles, ignoring the amused glances from the other men. "I thought I was hired to cook, not become part of the saddle." "That comes tomorrow," Thompson explained, joining them. "First day's always just about putting distance between us and town. Tomorrow we'll set up a proper camp, and you can start earning your keep." By the time they stopped for the night, Zara was certain she'd never walk normally again. They made camp in a small clearing beside a stream. The men efficiently unsaddled the horses, set up a simple camp, and gathered firewood. "Need help with the cooking fire?" Vaughn asked, approaching where Zara stood uncertainly. "Yes, please," she admitted. "I can cook over it, but building one from scratch." Together they arranged stones in a circle and stacked kindling in the center. Vaughn demonstrated how to start the fire with flint and steel, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. "You make it look so easy," Zara said as the kindling caught and flames licked upward. "Years of practice," Vaughn replied. "I've been on cattle drives since I was 14. You learn quick or you go hungry." The evening meal was simple beans, salt pork, and coffee so strong it could stand a spoon upright. Zara ate sparingly, her body too exhausted to feel much hunger. As darkness fell, the men rolled out their bedrolls around the fire. Thompson approached Zara with an extra blanket. "It gets cold at night," he said kindly. "You can sleep on that side of the fire. Calloway will be between you and the rest of us. Not that you need worry about these fellows, they're good men, but propriety matters, even on the trail." Zara thanked him and prepared her small space, placing her carpetbag as a makeshift pillow. The ground was hard beneath her blanket, but fatigue overcame discomfort. As she drifted toward sleep, she watched Vaughn through half-closed eyes. He sat with his back against a tree, staring into the flames, his expression thoughtful. In that moment, with the fire casting golden light across his features, she realized he was more than just handsome. He possessed a quiet dignity that spoke of inner strength. It was that strength that had made him stand between her and the sheriff, that same strength that now kept him alert while others slept. The last thing she remembered before sleep claimed her was the comforting thought that Vaughn Calloway was watching over her. Morning came all too soon. Zara woke to find every muscle protesting the previous day's ride. The camp was already stirring, with Mac tending the fire and Pete checking the horses. "Morning," Vaughn greeted her, offering a tin cup of steaming coffee. "Sleep well." "Better than I expected," Zara admitted, gratefully accepting the coffee. Its bitter warmth chased away the morning chill. "Though I feel like I've been trampled by a herd of buffalo." "It gets better," he promised. "Today you'll have your chance to impress us with your cooking skills." Thompson explained the day's plan over breakfast. They would travel until midday, then make camp early so Zara could prepare a proper evening meal. The next day would follow the same pattern, allowing them to cover ground while still having hot food morning and night. Back in the saddle, Zara found that while still uncomfortable, she at least knew what to expect. The scenery helped distract from her discomfort, lush valleys giving way to pine forests, small streams cutting through meadows where deer grazed cautiously. Vaughn rode beside her, pointing out landmarks and sharing stories of previous journeys through these lands. His voice was a pleasant rumble that mixed with the steady rhythm of hoofbeats. "Have you always worked with horses?" Zara asked during a brief rest stop. "Cattle mostly," Vaughn replied. "My family's ranch raises beef cattle, but a good cowhand needs to be comfortable with all livestock, horses, cattle, even sheep if times get desperate." He grinned at this last part. "Your ranch, you still have it?" A shadow crossed his face. "Yes, though it's smaller now. Had to sell off some acreage to pay debts after my parents died. My younger brother runs it with his wife while I take trail jobs to bring in extra money." "You're working to save the family home," Zara realized. Vaughn nodded. "Another year or two we'll be clear of debt. Then maybe I'll settle down there for good." The image of Vaughn settled on his ranch, perhaps with a wife, children, created an unexpected hollow feeling in Zara's chest. She pushed it aside. His future was none of her concern. They made camp in early afternoon beside a small lake. While the men cared for the horses, Zara set up her cooking area with nervous anticipation. This was her chance to prove her worth. The supplies included flour, beans, salt pork, coffee, sugar, dried apples, and a small amount of salt and pepper. Not much to work with, but Zara was determined to create something better than the previous night's meal. She kneaded biscuit dough, while a pot of beans simmered with pieces of salt pork. When Elijah returned with 2 rabbits he'd shot, Zara quickly skinned and cleaned them, adding the meat to the beans. Vaughn watched her work, impressed by her efficiency. "You've done this before. My father took me and my brothers hunting every fall," Zara explained, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Mother insisted we all learn to clean and cook whatever was caught." "Brothers?" Vaughn asked. "2, both gone now. James died at Gettysburg with father. William caught pneumonia the winter after." Vaughn was quiet for a moment. "You've lost a lot." "Everyone has their share of sorrows," Zara replied, focusing on the food to hide the emotion in her eyes. "It's how we carry them that matters." When dinner was ready, the men gathered eagerly around the fire. The rabbit and bean stew, accompanied by fresh biscuits and followed by stewed dried apples with cinnamon, earned Zara appreciative nods and compliments. "This is proper food," Mac declared, reaching for a 3rd biscuit. "Thompson, you struck gold hiring this lady." "Don't I know it?" Thompson agreed. "Best trail cook I've had in years." Zara flushed with pride. It felt good to be valued for her skills rather than judged for her circumstances. After dinner, while the others cleaned their plates in the lake, Vaughn helped Zara store the leftover food. "You didn't tell me you were such an accomplished cook," he said. "You didn't ask," Zara replied with a small smile. "Besides, this was simple fare, nothing special, made with limited supplies over a campfire after riding all morning," Vaughn pointed out. "I'd call that special." His praise warmed her more than it should have. "Thank you for convincing Thompson to hire me. It means more than I can say to be earning my way honestly again." Vaughn's expression softened. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Zara, sometimes even a 3rd or 4th. As they sat by the fire later, Thompson produced a battered harmonica and played a few melancholy tunes. The music drifted up to mingle with the stars, and for the first time in months, Zara felt a sense of belonging. Days on the trail fell into a rhythm. They would rise before dawn, have a quick breakfast, and ride until midday. Then they would make camp, allowing Zara to prepare the evening meal while the men tended the horses and secured the area. Each day brought new vistas, sometimes vast open plains, other times dense forests or rocky hills. The weather held fair, with only one brief rainstorm that left them damp, but not miserable. Zara's body adjusted to riding, her initial soreness giving way to a comfortable familiarity with Daisy's movements. Her cooking continued to impress, even as supplies dwindled, and she had to become increasingly creative. Most evenings, after the meal was done and the others had retired to their bedrolls, Vaughn would sit with her by the fire. Sometimes they talked about his ranch, her dreams of finding her mother's cousin in Denver, books they had read, or places they hoped to see. Other times they sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. On the 7th night, as they sat side by side staring into the embers, Vaughn suddenly asked, "What happened to make Silver Creek turn against you so completely?" Zara stiffened. She had been expecting the question, but that didn't make answering it any easier. "I told you about Mr. Pearson at the laundry," she began hesitantly. "You said he made advances and then accused you of theft when you refused him." "Yes." Zara drew her knees up to her chest. "But there's more to it. When he fired me, I went to the sheriff, trying to clear my name." Sheriff Masterson listened politely, then suggested that a woman in my position should be more accommodating. Her voice hardened. He implied that if I was more friendly to him, my troubles might disappear. Vaughn's jaw tightened. "And when you refused him too?" "He made sure everyone in town knew I was a thief and a troublemaker. After that, no respectable business would hire me. I took in mending, cleaned houses when someone would have me, but it was never enough." She sighed. The women were almost worse than the men. They treated me like I carried some contagious moral disease. That's why you were stealing bread, Vaughn concluded quietly. Zara nodded, unable to meet his eyes. I had gone 3 days without food. I told myself it was just this once that I would find a way to pay it back. But Mr. Donovan saw me and called for the sheriff immediately. And then I came along. And then you came along, she agreed, finally looking at him. Why did you stand up for me? I mean, you didn't know me. You certainly didn't owe me anything. Vaughn was silent for a long moment, staring into the dying fire. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost as if he were speaking to himself. When my parents died and the bank tried to take our ranch, a man named Joseph Fletcher stood with me against them. He had no reason to help, he was just passing through town. But he said something I never forgot. He said, "The measure of a society isn't how it treats its strongest members, but how it treats those with no power." Vaughn's gaze shifted to meet hers. When I saw you running, being chased by men with power for taking a loaf of bread, I heard Fletcher's voice in my head. The sincerity in his eyes made Zara's throat tighten. Well, I'm grateful, whatever your reason. I haven't regretted it, Vaughn said softly, not for a moment. Something shifted between them that night, a deeper understanding, a foundation of trust that went beyond their initial circumstances. As Zara lay in her bedroll, listening to the night sounds of the wilderness, she realized that for the first time since her mother died, she didn't feel alone. The next morning dawned cool and clear. As they prepared to depart, Thompson announced they were making good time. Should reach Boulder in another 10 days if the weather holds, he said as they saddled the horses. Might even be able to stop in Fairplay for supplies. The mention of a town made Zara both anxious and hopeful. Anxious because she feared a repeat of her Silver Creek experience. Hopeful because proper supplies would allow her to cook more varied meals. They rode through a narrow canyon that day, limestone walls rising on either side like sentinels guarding their path. The horses were restless, sensing something the humans couldn't perceive. "Keep alert," Thompson called back. "This is prime mountain lion territory." They had just emerged from the canyon into a small meadow when it happened. A rattlesnake, disturbed by the lead horse's hooves, struck out defensively. The horse reared in panic, causing a chain reaction down the line. Horses bolted in all directions, reins were yanked from hands, and men shouted in alarm. Daisy, usually so calm, spooked at the commotion. She reared suddenly, throwing Zara backward. The world tilted alarmingly, and Zara felt herself falling. Her head struck something hard as she hit the ground, and darkness swallowed her consciousness. She awoke to the sound of her name being called, panic edging the familiar voice. Opening her eyes required immense effort. Vaughn's worried face swam into focus above her. "Zara, can you hear me?" "Yes," she managed, her voice a rasp. "What happened?" Snake spooked the horses. "You fell." His hands gently probed her head, finding a tender spot that made her wince. "You hit your head pretty hard." She tried to sit up but fell back as dizziness overwhelmed her. "The horses." "We've rounded up most of them. Thompson and Pete are still tracking 2 that ran further." Vaughn's eyes never left her face. "Don't move yet. Just rest." Zara closed her eyes against the spinning sensation. "Is Daisy all right?" "She's fine. Elijah has her." His hand covered hers. "You had me worried." The genuine concern in his voice brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She blinked them away, embarrassed by the weakness. "I'm tougher than I look," she assured him. "I never doubted that." His thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. "But even tough people need looking after sometimes." By evening, all the horses had been recovered, and the group made camp in the meadow. Zara's head ached fiercely, but she insisted on cooking dinner despite Vaughn's objections. "Cooking will take my mind off the pain," she argued. "Besides, I need to earn my keep." "You've more than earned it already," Vaughn countered, but he helped her set up her cooking area, staying close as she worked. That night, sleep proved elusive. Every position seemed to intensify the throbbing in her head. After hours of restless tossing, Zara gave up and carefully rose from her bedroll. The fire had burned low, but there was enough moonlight to see by. She made her way slowly to the edge of camp, finding a fallen log to sit on. The night air was cool against her skin, soothing the heat of her pain. "Can't sleep," Vaughn's quiet voice came from behind her. Zara turned, wincing as the movement jarred her head. "My head hurts too much." He joined her on the log, offering a small leather pouch. "Willow bark. Make a tea from it, helps with pain." "Thank you." She took the pouch gratefully. "I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't. I was keeping watch." Zara frowned. "I thought Mac had the first watch tonight." "He did. I took it for him." Vaughn looked up at the star-filled sky. "Couldn't sleep either." They sat in companionable silence for a while, the night creatures providing a gentle chorus around them. "When we reach Boulder," Vaughn finally said. "What will you do?" The question caught Zara off guard. She had been so focused on escaping Silver Creek, on surviving day to day, that she hadn't thought much beyond reaching their destination. "I don't know," she admitted. "Try to find work, I suppose. Save enough to get to Denver." Thompson's offer to stay at the ranch was genuine, Vaughn reminded her. "It would be steady work, a safe place." "Is that what you want me to do?" Zara asked, studying his profile in the moonlight. Vaughn turned to face her. "What I want?" He began, then paused. "What I want is for you to be safe and happy, Zara. After everything you've been through, you deserve that much. And what about you? Will you stay at Thompson's ranch or go back to your own? I promised my brother I'd be home for the harvest." His voice held a note of regret. "But that's still months away." The implication hung between them: time together, then separation. Zara felt an unexpected ache at the thought. "We should try to sleep," Vaughn said finally, standing and offering his hand. "Tomorrow will be another long day." He helped her back to her bedroll, his touch gentle as he made sure she was comfortable. Before leaving her side, he hesitated, then leaned down and pressed a light kiss to her forehead. "Sleep well, Zara Zwick," he whispered. The simple gesture of tenderness left Zara breathless, her headache momentarily forgotten. As she drifted toward sleep, she wondered how a man she had known for such a short time could have become so important to her. The next few days passed without incident. Zara's head healed, though a tender spot remained. The trail led them higher into the foothills, where the air grew cooler and the pine forests denser. True to Thompson's prediction, they reached the small town of Fairplay on the 10th day. It was a mining settlement, rough around the edges but prosperous enough to have a general store, a hotel, and 3 saloons. "We'll stay the night," Thompson announced. "Rest the horses, restock supplies. Mac, Elijah, see to the horses. Pete, secure us rooms at the hotel. Miss Zwick, make a list of what you need from the store. Calloway will go with you." The prospect of a real bed and perhaps even a bath lifted everyone's spirits. Zara quickly compiled her list, prioritizing spices and flour. The general store was well stocked, catering to the miners and settlers in the area. As Zara selected her items, the storekeeper's wife watched her with undisguised curiosity. "You traveling with that horse drive?" the woman asked. "Yes," Zara replied simply, examining a jar of molasses. "I'm their cook." "Cook on the trail?" The woman's eyebrows rose. "That's unusual work for a lady." Before Zara could respond, Vaughn stepped in smoothly. "Miss Zwick is the finest trail cook in Colorado Territory. We're lucky to have her." His proud tone made Zara blush. The storekeeper's wife seemed impressed by Vaughn's obvious respect. "Well, if you're cooking, you'll want some of my dried cherries," she said, warming to Zara. "Make a fine pie they would." They left the store with more supplies than Zara had dared hope for, including the precious dried cherries. As they walked toward the hotel, Vaughn suddenly took her elbow, steering her across the street. "Let's get you something that isn't trail clothes," he suggested, nodding toward a small dress shop. "Vaughn, I can't consider it a gift," he insisted. "You've worked hard and we still have half the journey ahead." An hour later, Zara emerged with a new dress of sky blue calico, simple but well made. She also had a proper nightgown and undergarments, all wrapped discreetly in brown paper. "Thank you," she said sincerely as they continued toward the hotel. "It's been a long time since I had anything new." "It suits you the color, I mean," Vaughn replied. "Matches your eyes when you laugh." The observation was so unexpected, so personal, that Zara missed a step. Vaughn's hand shot out to steady her, lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. The hotel was modest but clean. Thompson had secured 3 rooms, one for himself, one for the other 3 men, and a small one for Zara. The luxury of privacy after days on the trail brought tears to her eyes. Even better, the hotel offered baths for an additional fee. Zara didn't hesitate, despite the cost. The sensation of sinking into hot water, washing away the trail dust and sweat, was worth every penny. Later, dressed in her new nightgown with her hair freshly washed and dried, Zara sat on her bed and marveled at how much her life had changed in just 2 weeks. From stealing bread in desperation to having money in her pocket and new clothes to where it seemed almost like a dream. A soft knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders before opening it slightly. Vaughn stood in the hallway, freshly shaved and wearing a clean shirt. His hair was still damp from his own bath. "I thought you might be hungry," he said, holding up a covered tray. "The dining room was closing, but I convinced them to make up a plate for you." Zara opened the door wider to let him in. The small room suddenly felt even smaller with his tall frame occupying much of the space. "That was thoughtful of you," she said, taking the tray and placing it on the small table by the window. The aroma of roast beef and potatoes made her stomach growl appreciatively. Vaughn smiled at the sound. "I'll leave you to enjoy your meal in peace." "No, stay," Zara found herself saying. "Please, I've gotten used to having company while I eat." He hesitated, then nodded. "For a little while." They sat across from each other at the tiny table while Zara ate. The food was simple but delicious, a welcome change from trail cooking. "The men have gone to the saloon," Vaughn said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Thompson invited me along, but I'm not much for drinking." "So instead you're keeping company with the cook," Zara teased gently. "The cook is better company," he replied without hesitation. Zara looked down at her plate, suddenly shy under his steady gaze. "Tell me more about your ranch," she said, changing the subject. "You mentioned your brother runs it now, Samuel. He's 2 years younger than me. Married Abigail Johnson 3 years ago. They have a little boy now named him after our father, James." Pride warmed Vaughn's voice. "Good people, both of them. They keep the place running while I take these trail jobs." "You must miss them," Zara observed. "I do, but the extra money helps. Another year or so and we'll have the mortgage paid off completely. And then, will you stay there permanently?" Vaughn's expression grew thoughtful. "That was always the plan. Take a wife, raise a family, live the way our parents did. And is there someone waiting for you?" Zara asked, trying to keep her tone casual. "No," Vaughn answered softly. "There wasn't anyone who—" He trailed off, then met her eyes directly. "No one until recently." The implication hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Zara's heart beat faster, but uncertainty held her tongue. Vaughn stood suddenly. "I should let you rest. We leave at first light." "Of course," Zara said, rising as well. "Thank you for the meal and the company." At the door, he paused, looking back at her with an intensity that took her breath away. For a moment, she thought he might say more, might even step toward her. Instead, he touched the brim of an imaginary hat and left. Alone again, Zara pressed her fingers to her warm cheeks. What was happening between them? Was she imagining the way his eyes lingered on her, the gentleness in his touch when he helped her mount Daisy each morning? And more importantly, what did she want to happen? The answer came with surprising clarity. She wanted Vaughn Calloway. Not just his protection or his kindness, but his quiet strength, his integrity, his rare smile that transformed his serious face. The realization should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like finally acknowledging a truth her heart had known since the day he stood between her and the sheriff. Morning arrived all too quickly. Zara dressed in her new blue dress, saving the trail clothes for when they departed. She wanted to feel like a proper woman, if only for breakfast. In the hotel dining room, Vaughn's eyes widened appreciatively when she entered. He rose from his seat at the table he shared with Thompson and the others. "Miss Zwick," he greeted her formally, pulling out a chair for her. "You look rested." It wasn't what he wanted to say, she could tell by the way his gaze traveled over her, taking in the dress, her neatly pinned hair, the color in her cheeks. The other men were more vocal in their approval. "My word, Miss Zwick," Thompson declared. "You clean up better than a new rifle." Breakfast was a cheerful affair, with everyone in good spirits from a night in real beds. As they finished eating, Thompson outlined the rest of their journey. "We'll reach Boulder in about a week if the weather holds," he explained. "The ranch is another day's ride beyond that. Once we're there, you'll all have your pay and a few days' rest before you move on." As they prepared to depart, Zara changed back into her trail clothes with some reluctance. The dress had made her feel feminine again, a reminder that she was more than just a trail cook. The next week passed quickly. The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they approached the foothills of the Rockies. Zara's cooking continued to impress, especially with the new supplies from Fairplay. The dried cherry pie she made one evening had the men declaring her a miracle worker. On the 6th day after Fairplay, they crested a hill to see the town of Boulder spread before them in the valley. Even from a distance, it was clearly larger and more established than Silver Creek. "We'll go through town tomorrow," Thompson announced. "Be at the ranch by sundown day after." That night, as they sat by the fire after dinner, an unusual melancholy settled over Zara. Their journey was nearing its end, and with it, the strange, wonderful interlude that had brought her and Vaughn together. "Penny for your thoughts," Vaughn said, joining her by the fire after the others had retired. "I'm not sure they're worth that much," Zara replied with a small smile. "They are to me." The simple statement warmed her more than the fire. "I was thinking about Boulder," she said. "About what comes next? Have you decided? Will you stay at Thompson's ranch?" Zara poked at the fire with a stick, watching the sparks rise into the night sky. "I don't know. It's tempting steady work, a roof over my head, but, Vaughn prompted when she fell silent. "But it doesn't feel like where I'm meant to be." She looked at him directly. "What about you? Will you go straight back to your ranch?" "That depends," he said carefully. "On what?" "On whether I have reason to stay in Boulder a while longer." The implication was clear, but Zara needed more than hints and suggestions. "Vaughn," she began hesitantly, "these past weeks, what have they meant to you?" He was quiet for so long she feared she had misread everything. Then, with deliberate movements, he moved closer and took her hand in his. "They've meant everything, Zara," he said, his voice low and earnest. "You've meant everything." "We've known each other such a short time," she whispered, though her heart leapt at his words. "Some people search their whole lives for what I found the moment you ran into me on that street in Silver Creek." His thumb traced patterns on her palm. "I'm not a man who believes in chance, Zara. I believe things happen for a reason." "And what reason would that be?" she asked, hardly daring to breathe. "So I could find you, so we could find each other." His free hand came up to touch her cheek, turning her face toward his. "I'm falling in love with you, Zara Zwick. I think I started falling that first day and I haven't stopped since." The words she had longed to hear, yet feared all the same. "Vaughn," she began, but he pressed a gentle finger to her lips. "You don't have to say anything now," he assured her. "I know this is sudden. I know you've been hurt, that trusting doesn't come easy. I'm just asking for a chance to show you that what I feel is real." Zara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. When she opened them, the decision was made. "I feel it too," she confessed. "This connection between us. I've tried to tell myself it's gratitude or circumstance, but it's more than that." Vaughn's smile transformed his face, chasing away the worry lines. "May I kiss you, Zara?" In answer, she leaned forward, closing the small distance between them. His lips were warm and gentle on hers, the kiss tender yet filled with promise. His hand cradled her face as if she were made of porcelain, his touch reverent. When they parted, Zara felt as breathless as if she'd run for miles. "That was," she began, unable to find adequate words. "The first of many," Vaughn completed for her, his voice husky with emotion. "If you'll allow it." They sat together by the fire until the embers burned low, talking of possibilities, dreams, and a future that suddenly seemed much brighter than before. Morning brought renewed purpose to their journey. As they packed up camp, Zara and Vaughn exchanged glances filled with newfound understanding. Nothing obvious had changed in their behavior. They were both too private for public displays, but Thompson gave them a knowing look nonetheless. "Boulder's a fine town," he commented casually as they rode out. "Good place for a fresh start, or even a wedding." Zara blushed deeply, but Vaughn merely nodded. "So I've heard, sir." The town appeared on the horizon by midday, a bustling settlement of wooden buildings, proper streets, and signs of prosperity. As they rode through the main thoroughfare, heads turned at the sight of the impressive horses. "We'll stop here for supplies," Thompson announced, reining in front of a large general store. "Miss Zwick, I'm sure you'd appreciate the chance to stretch your legs." While the men attended to business, Zara wandered through the store, marveling at the variety of goods available. This was no frontier outpost, but a proper town with amenities she hadn't seen since leaving home years ago. As she examined a display of fabric, a well-dressed woman approached her. "You came in with those horsemen, didn't you?" she asked without preamble. "Yes," Zara replied cautiously. "I'm their cook." The woman's eyebrows rose. "A female trail cook, how unusual." She extended her hand. "I'm Martha Whitaker. My husband owns the mercantile across the street." "Zara Zwick," Zara replied, shaking the offered hand. "Are you planning to stay in Boulder, Miss Zwick?" "We're always in need of skilled women in this town." "I haven't decided yet," Zara admitted. "I was originally headed to Denver to find my mother's cousin." "Denver," Mrs. Whitaker frowned slightly. "It's becoming quite overcrowded. Many people arrive with high hopes only to find disappointment." "Boulder offers more opportunities for a woman of quality, I believe." Before Zara could respond, Vaughn appeared at her side. "Everything all right, Zara?" The use of her first name, the protective stance, the way his hand rested lightly at the small of her back, none of these escaped Mrs. Whitaker's notice. Perfectly fine, Zara assured him. This is Mrs. Whittaker. She was just telling me about Boulder. Vaughn tipped his hat politely. Madam. Mrs. Whittaker's expression warmed considerably as she assessed Vaughn. Your husband, she asked Zara. My. Zara faltered, unsure how to define their relationship. Friend, Vaughn supplied smoothly. For now. The implication made Zara's cheeks warm, but Mrs. Whittaker merely smiled knowingly. I see. Well, if you do decide to stay in Boulder, Miss Zwick, please call on me. I'm always happy to help newcomers find their place in our community. After she departed, Vaughn gave Zara a questioning look. Friend, for now, she repeated with a small smile. It seemed the most honest answer, he replied. Unless you'd prefer another term. The playful challenge in his eyes made her heart skip. I think for now covers it adequately, Mr. Calloway, she said primly, though she couldn't keep the smile from her lips. They departed Boulder by mid-afternoon, following Thompson toward his ranch. The countryside grew more picturesque as they traveled, with rolling meadows giving way to aspen groves. By sunset, they crested a hill to see a large ranch house nestled in a valley below, surrounded by fenced pastures and outbuildings. Smoke rose from the chimney and lights glowed in the windows, creating an image of welcome. Home, Thompson said with satisfaction. At least my new one. A woman emerged from the house as they approached, tall, slender, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Thompson's face lit up at the sight of her. My wife, Eleanor, he explained proudly. Came out by stage last month to get the house in order. The reunion between husband and wife was touching to witness. Eleanor Thompson embraced her husband warmly, then turned to welcome the travelers. You must be exhausted, she said, her gaze taking in each of them before settling on Zara. Especially you, my dear. It's no small thing to keep up with these men on the trail. This is Miss Zwick, our cook, Thompson introduced her. Best trail meals I've ever had. Eleanor's face brightened. Wonderful. I've been hoping to find someone to help in the kitchen. We'll be having ranch hands arriving next week, and I'd be grateful for assistance. Zara glanced at Vaughn, who gave her an encouraging nod. I'd be happy to help while I'm here, Mrs. Thompson. Excellent. Now, all of you come inside. Dinner's waiting, and there are hot baths ready in the bunkhouse for the men. Miss Zwick, you'll stay in the house with us, of course. The Thompson ranch house was spacious and comfortable, already bearing Eleanor's touch in the curtains at the windows and the colorful quilts on the furniture. Zara was shown to a small but pleasant bedroom with a real bed luxury after weeks on the trail. Dinner was a lively affair, with Thompson recounting their journey and Eleanor sharing news of Boulder. Zara noticed how Vaughn kept the conversation flowing, asking thoughtful questions and drawing out even the quiet Elijah. Later, as the men prepared to head to the bunkhouse for the night, Vaughn lingered behind, catching Zara's hand as she cleared dishes from the table. Meet me on the porch in 10 minutes, he whispered. Zara nodded, her pulse quickening at the thought of a moment alone with him. She finished helping Eleanor with the dishes, then excused herself for a breath of fresh air before bed. Vaughn waited on the porch swing, his tall frame silhouetted against the starlit sky. He stood when he saw her, offering his hand to help her join him on the swing. It feels strange, he said as they sat side by side. A real roof, real walls. After weeks under the stars, it almost seems confining. I know what you mean, Zara agreed, though I won't complain about a real bed tonight. They sat in comfortable silence, the swing moving gently beneath them. Vaughn's arm stretched along the back, not quite touching her shoulders but close enough that she could feel its warmth. Thompson offered me a job, he finally said. Asked if I'd stay on for a month or two, help train some of the horses before they arrive. Zara's heart leapt. And what did you say? I told him I needed to think about it. Vaughn turned to face her, his expression serious in the moonlight. I told him my decision depended on certain factors. What factors? She asked, though she knew the answer, whether I had reason to stay. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Whether someone I care about might be staying too. Zara looked down at their joined hands. Alina did offer me a position as well as cook for the ranch hands. And I said the same, that I needed to think about it. Vaughn's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. Zara, he began, his voice low and earnest, I know we've only known each other a short while. I know it may seem too soon for what I'm feeling, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. What are you certain of? She whispered, that I love you, that I want to build a life with you, whether here or at my ranch or somewhere else entirely. His free hand gently tilted her face up to meet his gaze, that I want to wake up every morning knowing you're by my side. Tears welled in Zara's eyes. Vaughn, you don't have to answer now, he assured her quickly. I know you've been hurt, that trust doesn't come easily. I'm willing to wait, to give you time. Zara silenced him by pressing her fingers to his lips. I wasn't going to say no, she said softly. I was going to say I feel the same way, that somehow in these few short weeks you've become the most important person in my world. The joy that transformed Vaughn's face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing he'd ever touched. I love you, Zara Zwick, he murmured against her hair. And I promise to spend every day making sure you never regret loving me back. When their lips met, it was a seal on that promise, tender yet passionate, filled with hopes for the future they would build together. The next day, they announced their decisions to stay at Thompson's ranch, at least temporarily. Alina was delighted to have Zara's help in the kitchen, while Thompson clapped Vaughn on the shoulder approvingly. Knew you two were a good match the moment I saw you together, he said with satisfaction. Nothing like a trail journey to show true character. Life at the ranch quickly established its own rhythm. Zara took charge of the kitchen, preparing meals for the growing household as more ranch hands arrived. Vaughn worked with the horses, his natural way with animals earning respect from everyone who watched him. In the evenings, they would walk together, exploring the ranch property and talking about the future. Sometimes they rode out to a nearby hill to watch the sunset, sitting close with Vaughn's arm around Zara's shoulders. 3 weeks after their arrival, a letter came for Zara. She opened it with trembling hands. It was from her mother's cousin in Denver, responding to the letter Zara had sent upon reaching Boulder. She's still there, Zara told Vaughn as they sat on their favorite hilltop that evening. Rebecca says I'm welcome to visit anytime, but... She hesitated, glancing at him. But, he prompted gently. But I told her I've found where I belong, Zara finished, her eyes meeting his. That I've found who I belong with. Vaughn pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. Are you certain? Denver might offer opportunities the ranch can't. I've never been more certain of anything, Zara replied, echoing his words from weeks before. My place is with you, Vaughn Calloway, wherever that may be. The following Sunday they rode into Boulder together. Their first stop was the jeweler's shop, where Vaughn selected a simple gold band with a small sapphire that reminded him of Zara's eyes. Their second stop was the church, where they spoke with the minister and arranged for a wedding 2 weeks hence. As they walked back to their horses, Zara suddenly paused in front of the general store. Do you think we should tell Mrs. Whitaker? She asked with a mischievous smile. She did say to call on her. Vaughn laughed, pulling her close despite the public setting. By all means. I want everyone to know that the most remarkable woman in Colorado has agreed to be my wife. Their wedding was a simple affair, held in the Thompsons' front parlor with Alina handling the decorations, and preparing a feast for the small gathering. Zara wore a new dress of cream-colored silk that Alina had helped her select in Boulder, with wildflowers in her hair. As she walked toward Vaughn, who waited beside the minister in his best suit, Zara marveled at how dramatically her life had changed in just 2 months. From a desperate woman stealing bread to survive, to a bride marrying a man whose love had healed wounds she hadn't known could heal. Their vows were traditional, but spoken with such feeling that Alina dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. When Vaughn slid the sapphire ring onto Zara's finger, his hands were steady, his eyes never leaving hers. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "You may kiss your bride." Vaughn's kiss was tender but held the promise of passion to come. When they turned to face their small audience as Mr. and Mrs. Calloway, the applause was enthusiastic. Later, as they danced together in the yard where Thompson had set up a small platform, Vaughn held Zara close and whispered in her ear, "Happy, Mrs. Calloway." "More than I ever thought possible," she replied truthfully, resting her head against his chest. "And you?" "I have everything I never knew I was looking for," he said simply. 3 months later, with summer turning to autumn, they prepared to leave the Thompson ranch. Vaughn's brother had written, asking him to return home for the harvest and offering a permanent place for both him and his new wife. "Are you sure you're ready?" Vaughn asked as they packed their belongings, considerably more than the single carpet bag Zara had arrived with. "The ranch is smaller than this, more isolated. As long as we're together, I don't care if we live in a cave," Zara said, folding a dress Alina had given her. "Besides, I'm looking forward to meeting Samuel and Abigail, and little James." "They'll love you," Vaughn assured her, pulling her into his arms. How could they not? Their departure was emotional, with Alina extracting promises of visits and letters. Thompson shook Vaughn's hand firmly, then surprised him with a hearty embrace. "You're a good man, Calloway," he said gruffly. "Your wife is proof of that a woman like her wouldn't settle for less." As they rode away from the ranch that had been their first home together, Zara felt not sadness but anticipation. The future stretched before them like an open trail, full of promise. "What are you thinking?" Vaughn asked, riding close beside her. "I was thinking about Silver Creek," Zara admitted, "about how desperate I was that day, how I thought my life was over before it had really begun. And now—" She smiled, touching the wedding band on her finger. "Now I know it was just beginning. The moment you stood between me and that sheriff, my whole world changed. For both of us," Vaughn agreed, reaching across to take her hand. "I went to Silver Creek looking for work. Instead, I found the rest of my life." They rode on toward their future, side by side, exactly as they would remain through all the years to come. 5 years later, Zara stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching as Vaughn taught their 3-year-old daughter, Alina, to sit on a gentle pony. Their infant son, James, slept in a cradle beside her, his small face peaceful in slumber. The Calloway ranch had prospered under the combined efforts of the brothers and their wives. The mortgage was paid off, the herds had grown, and they had even begun breeding horses as a secondary business. Abigail emerged from the house, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. "Dinner's nearly ready," she announced. "Should I call them in?" "Not yet," Zara replied with a smile. "Look at her face, she's so happy." Indeed, little Alina was beaming with pride as she sat straight-backed on the pony while her father led it in a small circle. Her dark hair and gray eyes marked her as Vaughn's daughter, but her determined spirit was all Zara's. Samuel joined them on the porch, his own son trailing behind him. "My brother makes a good father," he observed. "Never thought I'd see the day when Vaughn Calloway would be leading a pony instead of breaking wild mustangs." "He still does both," Zara pointed out. Just at different times of the day. Life wasn't perfect. There had been hardships, arguments, difficult times. But through it all, Vaughn had been the steady presence she could always count on, just as he had been that first day in Silver Creek. When the lesson ended, Vaughn lifted Alina from the pony's back and set her on his shoulders for the walk to the house. Her delighted giggles carried across the yard, making Zara's heart swell with love. Vaughn's eyes met hers across the distance, a smile spreading across his face, the special smile he reserved only for her. In that moment, Zara knew that no matter what challenges life might bring, they would face them together. She was no longer the woman who thought no one would stand for her. She was Zara Calloway, wife, mother, partner to a man who had faced down a sheriff and wouldn't move. A man who had shown her that love, when it's real and true, can transform even the darkest circumstances into a life filled with joy. As her family gathered around the dinner table that evening, Zara said a silent prayer of gratitude for that fateful day in Silver Creek, the day a desperate woman had run into the one man who would change everything. The end was just the beginning.